breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Hey, warm from hello. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by a good friend of ours, Curtis Rogers, who does such amazing work over at 710 Seattle Sports. We'll chat with him about what we're all seeing in this wild American League landscape, the Seattle Mariners, what's all going on with regards to the piggyback approach, and so much more. Then in the final segment, I'm going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one or two ways we'll fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at @GUnit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, they mean does not matter. So as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, we did have ourselves a great day of baseball on Thursday. Let's take a look back at it, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The Pittsburgh Pirates walked the plank to a 6-1 win as Alan Rangel, 4 shutout innings out of him, but walked 4, so he was out of this game early. From there, Tim Meza gives up a run in an inning. Jonathan Bolin, shutout inning, but Jose Alvarado, doing what he's done all season long, 2 runs allowed in an inning. Lou Trevino, he gives up 2 runs in an inning and was taken deep by Endy Rodriguez, 5th home run season. Then Nick Gonzalez off of Kyle Bacchus, 4th home run season. Bacchus gives up that home run in his inning work. And Jared Jones, not long for this game, but not bad. 1 run allowed in 4 innings. And then Carmen Bolshinski in long relief, 3 shutout innings. Gregory Soto, Mason Montgomery, scoreless 8th and 9th innings. The Miz gets hit, 7-2. The Brewers, they fall to the Cincinnati Reds as for Mizorowski gives up 5 runs in this game now, only one of which was earned. He was hurt by Jake Bauer's catching error, but that said, he gives up a pair of bombs as you had cousin Sal Stewart get his 17th home run of the season, and Jose Trevino, his 1st home run of the season. A little bit later on, TJ Friedl, 3rd home run of the season. That comes off of Grant Anderson, who gives up that home run in 1 2/3 innings. Jared Koenig, and out of the bullpen squirrels, Joe Kunal gives up a run in an inning, and then you would have a scoreless inning as well from the young gun and Garrett Stallings, I believe his MLB debut. And for Chase Burns, not Chase Early, you did give up a home run to Garrett Mitchell, 7th home run of the campaign, but gives up 2 runs over the course of 6 innings. And then from there, you had Sam Moll give you 4 outs out of the bullpen squirrels, CJ Antone, pair of outs squirrels, and Brock and Roll Burke does not get Brock and rolled, squirrels inning out of him. The Colorado Rockies, they rock and roll the Miami Marlins. The Marlins had the most wins out there in the month of June, and they're now 0-2 in the month of July. 14-4, the Rockies get the job done. Ryan Gusto, no May Gusto, to giving up 3 runs in 3 innings, and he was taken deep by Mickey Moniak, 15th home run season. Jake McCarthy a little bit later on off of John King. He was the king of getting his 7th home run season. King gives up 2 runs in 2 innings. Calvin Fauché, 4 runs allowed in a 3rd of an inning. Cade Gibson, 5 outs out of the bullpen, he gives up 3 runs, and then Javier Sanja, position player, 2 runs given up in his inning work, and Michael Lorenzen wasn't great. 4 runs allowed in 4 1/3 innings, walked 6, but bullpen does their part from there. Victor Vodnik, Brendan Bernardino, both give you 4 outs out of the bullpen squirrels. Zach Ognos, 2 shutout innings to be able to get that one to the window. Also being able to get to the window, the Cleveland Guardians, 6-5. They take down the Chicago White Sox as the White Sox completely yacked this game away. They were up by a count of 5-2 in this game going into the 6th inning, and for Davis Martin, just not long for this game. He walked 5, he gives up 2 runs over the course of 3 1/3 innings. Chris Murphy from there, 5 outs out of the bullpen squirrels. Sean Newcomb gives up a run in an inning. Brandon Iser, he gives up a run in 1 1/3 innings, and he was taken deep. Going deep for the Cleveland Guardians, it was home run number 6 of the season for David Fry, and then Brian Rocchio, walk-off fashion, 6th home run season, comes off of Grant Taylor, who gives up 2 runs in 1 1/3 innings. Then Slade Ciccone, his first start of giving up more than 3 earned runs in 11 starts, 5 runs allowed in 5 innings, and he was taken deep by Chase Meadroth, 7th home run season. But then from there, Sean Armstrong, 4 outs out of the bullpen squirrels. Tim Herron, a scoreless inning, and Daniel Espino, he was able to give you 5 outs scoreless as well for the Atlanta Braves. They tumble to the Atlanta Braves, this by a count of 11-5 for the Bravos. Hurston Waldrop, 5 1/3 innings. He gives up 3 runs. They all came in the first inning as he does allow a home run to Jordan Walker, 19th home run season. From there, Nate Church goes deep off of Tyler Kinley, 7th home run season, and Alec Burleson off of James Karinchak, 14th home run season. The Braves entered in this game number 1 in terms of bullpen here, and that went downward as Kinley, 3 runs allowed in 2/3 of an inning, including that bomb. Dylan Lee, 3 runs allowed in a third of an inning. Ian Hamilton gives up a run in 1 2/3 innings, and then James Karinchak, solo run given up in his inning of work. And for the St. Louis Cardinals, Dustin May, 5 runs allowed in 2/3 of an inning. He was not taken deep at all, but he just gave up a bunch of contact in general. And then from there, the St. Louis Cardinals, 8 1/3 innings scoreless out of the bullpen. Justin Brule, 2 2/3 innings scoreless. Ryan Fernandez, 5 out scoreless. Goran Gaseffo, Giorgio Romero, George Soriano all end a scoreless inning, and then Matt Svanson is able to clean up the 9th inning himself. The Tampa Bay Rays, they get a 5-2 win over the Kansas City Royals as Ian Seymour, solid start here. He gives up 1 run over the course of 6 innings, was taken deep by one Mr. Carter Jensen, 13th home run season. Then Isaac Collins a little bit later on off of Cam Boozer, 4th home run season. Boozer gives up that solo run in his inning of work, but Greg Clevenger, Brian Baker, they both give you a shutout inning. And Stephen Kolek was out long for this game, 3 runs allowed over the course of 2 innings. Randy Dobinick, 2 runs allowed over the course of 4 innings, and he was taken deep by Cedric Mullins, 10th home run season. John Schreiber, Daniel Lynch, Steven Cruz from there, they all give you a scoreless inning, but too little too late out of them. For the Walker Texas Rangers, well, they Walker their way to a nice win. They take down the Tigers, this by a count of 10-4 as Framber Valdez, not the start he was looking for. 5 runs allowed over the course of 5 innings, was taken deep by Elias Diaz, his 4th home run of the campaign. From there, Bo Brisky gives up a home run in 1 2/3 innings. Josh Smith getting his first home run of the campaign. From there, Drew Summers, he does not get a single out. He gives up 3 runs, all of which were earned. Kenley Jansen, he gets an out of the bullpen, and that was not a safe situation. Before Kyle Finnegan, he gives up a home run in his inning work, as it was home run number 7 of the campaign for Evan Carter. Meanwhile, for Nathan Eovaldi, he does give up 3 runs over the course of 5 innings, taken deep by Cole Keith, his 6th home run season. Then Ayo Lee, his 4th home run of the campaign. From there, Tyler Alexander, Peyton Gray, both give you a pair of outs out of the bullpen scores. Same goes for Robbie Alstrom. Cole Winn continues to have a rough season, a run given up in his inning, but Kevin Collier, shutout inning. So Rangers back to 45-43. Low scoring affair out there in Seattle. We'll talk a little bit more about the Mariners in the next segment with Curtis Rogers. 1-0. They take down the Angels. Angels give up 2 total hits. Walbe Yarena walks in a run, and that was the lone run that was scored in this game. 5 2/3 innings, walks 4, but he gives up 1 hit, 1 run. From there, Sam Natera Jr., 1 1/3 innings, scoreless. Sam Bachman, a scoreless inning, and Bryce Miller. He took a no-hitter into the 7th inning, gives up 2 hits in total over the course of his 7 innings. Edward Bizardo, Andres Munoz, they both led his scoreless inning, and then high-scoring affair out there in Los Angeles. The Dodgers, 12-7 winners over the Slam Diego Padres, and for the Padres, they did get up 6-0 in this game, and then Randy Vasquez happened, 4 runs allowed over the course of 3 innings, and he was taken deep by Dalton Rushing, 10th home run season. Roki Sasaki was worse, 6 runs allowed over the course of 3 innings. Manny Machado, 17th home run season. Jay Cronenworth, his 2nd, and then Jackson Merrill's 9th. Bullpen from there was very rock solid, though. Will Klein, 2 shutout innings. Brock and Roll Stewart, Alex Vesia, Edgar Enriquez, all end a scoreless inning. Paul Gervasi, he does give up a run in 2/3 of an inning. Tanner Scott cleans up the mess. He gets the final out of the game, and for the Padres, the bullpen is starting to regress. Wandy Peralta, 4 runs allowed in an inning. Yuki Matsui, 2 runs given up in his inning, and Adaman Marquez in long relief. He gives up 2 runs over the course of 3 innings, and if you're taking a look at trend-wise, what we're getting in Major League Baseball right now, it has been an overwhelming season, and it's been an overwhelming last 7 days. 50 overs, 44 unders, and a push over the last 7 days. That's a 53.2% hit rate to the over. Favorites on the money line hitting at a little bit over 60.5%, 55-36 on the money line. All but 13 have been able to cover that run line, and then overall for the season, favorites on the money line hitting at 55.7%, 706 and 561 on the money line. Meanwhile, if you're looking at those favorites, you've had a grand total now of 165 be unable to cover the run line. Meanwhile, if you're looking at the totals, 647 unders, 625 unders, and if Matt serves me correct, 32 pushes. So that's what we're getting in baseball right now. That's what we're getting trend-wise. Coming next, let's chat it up with our good friend Curtis Rogers of 710 Seattle Sports Radio on the Baseball Betting Show. With myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got Curtis Rogers aboard. He does an amazing job over at 710 Seattle Sports, looking at this great game that we all know and love of baseball, as he is a pre- and post-game host for the Seattle Mariners. Additionally, I know that he's doing a great job with his finger on the pulse of everything out there in the Pacific Northwest, whether that be the Seattle Kraken, the Seattle Mariners, college basketball with the likes of Washington, what have you, and you're able to follow him on Twitter/X and Instagram at A Kid From Kent altogether. And Curtis, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
Greg, always happy to hop on with you, talk some baseball, and all-star teams are going to be announced this weekend. We're in the second half of the season already. Things are moving quickly, and it's really fun to talk about it with you, catch up on all the headlines around Major League Baseball, and there's a lot going on all across the league.
Yep, it's a case where with the All-Star game, by the way, how about the ballot stuffing by the Toronto Blue Jays fans? That was quite impressive, to say the least. And what else has been impressive is the lack of clarity that we've got in the American League. It was definitely looking like the Yankees were the top team in the American League, I would say, about 8 or so days ago, and I don't think that they've won a game since. What do you make out of an American League, a league that you cover where I don't think I've ever seen a league so weak before in my life?
Yeah, it's truly bizarre. And to your point about the Blue Jays ballot stuffing, in no world is Ernie Clement the best player in the American League.
Leander Kirk was a finalist for the catcher spot. Leander Kirk! He played 15 games!
It makes no sense, but sure, why not? We'll give the Blue Jays that. But we talked to Buster Olney up here a few weeks ago, and he called the American League the land of opportunity, which I guess is a positive spin on what we have seen from the AL in the season's first half. But I've never seen it this bad either. It is truly remarkable just how down nearly everyone is. I mean, heck, the Yankees, who have long been the best team in the American League, are currently mired in a 7-game losing streak. They're still 10 games above 500, but they're now 4 games back of the Rays in the American League East. The Rays themselves, over that same time stamp, have gained 7.5 games on the Yankees. They've won 8 straight themselves. So for as cold as the Yankees have been, that's how hot the Rays are. Now, if you talk to anybody who is covering the game at the national level, very few of them will say that the Rays are the best team in the American League, despite the fact that they have a pretty substantial lead on everybody else right now. They've got an incredible home record. The Tropicana Field, which just reopened this last year, 31-12 at the Trop this season. They've been fantastic at home, but I just look across the American League right now, and I have a hard time buying any team. I think maybe over the long term, especially if they're able to get Aaron Judge back, I have the most confidence in the Yankees coming away with an American League pennant right now, but God, everybody else is just so mediocre. It is incredible, and maybe not a good incredible.
Good grief, man. It has been wild what we've been seeing this far this season out there in the American League. And with regards to taking a look at things right now, I still am maybe a little bit of a believer in the Blue Jays being able to rise up, and you're going to have an upfront seat to them over the weekend, because starting up on Friday, we're going to have the Blue Jays going up against the Mariners, and I would say that they have the pitching advantage of game number 1 with Luis Castillo going up against Dylan Cease. And how do you take a look at this series for both teams? Because for the Blue Jays, they've been floundering recently as well. We joke about the ballot stuffing because, man, those guys really don't deserve to be all-stars. You maybe have 1 or 2 on the roster, but boy, they shouldn't have had as many votes as they did. But that said, for the Blue Jays, for as bad as it's been, for as many injuries as they've had, they're like a 4 or 5 game win streak away from controlling the wild card in the American League, as is pretty much every team in the wild card hunt.
Yeah, the Blue Jays, I mean, their struggles, I have no idea how they have struggled offensively as bad as they have this season. I think we can all point to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. because I don't think anybody at this point in the year thought Andres Gimenez was going to essentially double Vlad Jr.'s home run total. And Vlad Jr. hasn't missed really much time at all. He's played in nearly every game for the Blue Jays. The fact that he sits here with just 4 home runs on basically July 4th is incredible.
Luis Arias has more home runs than Vlad Guerrero. Luis Arias!
It makes no sense how one of the game's best power hitters has had such a power outage. Now, Okamoto has been a really good find for them this year. If he hasn't been in their lineup, just thinking, hypothetically here, I don't know what the Blue Jays look like. They're nowhere close to the 41-46 record they have right now. I'm thinking they're probably, 36, 35 wins at this point. Probably you could, pack it in for the season. But this Blue Jays team, Greg, really, really confusing because they have a lot of name power for sure, and just a lot of guys who you look at and you're like, yeah, this guy should absolutely be good. You look at the rotation, Kevin Gausman, Dylan Cease, Trey Savage. Those guys have, for the most part, been really good this year. Louis Varland has been fantastic out of the bullpen. Patrick Corbin, not so good. I mean, but he hasn't been good in almost a decade now. It is really, really strange to see this Blue Jays team in this spot. Max Scherzer has been a big nothing for them. You kind of wonder if maybe Max Scherzer has kind of held on a little too long
Way too
for,
long.
for the Blue Jays here. And, they're still kind of wondering what they have in Shane Bieber this season. I look at this Blue Jays team, Greg, and the names, they tell a story of a team that should be a lot better than what they are. But right now, the sum of the parts has been severely lacking. And I think you could definitely chalk them up as one of the game's most disappointing teams to this point in the year.
Oh, no question about it. And there have been a lot of disappointments out there. Looking at you, the Boston Red Sox. Looking at you, the Detroit Tigers. Looking at you, the Kansas City Royals. So there's been a lot of them, as Curtis Rogers, who does such amazing work over at 710 Seattle Sports, is joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And what do we make right now on the Seattle Mariners? Because last week, we were talking about, Logan Gilbert is going to be a part of the piggyback situation. That got scratched at the absolute last second, and I think that it's going to be really interesting to see what happens moving forward with the pitching staff, especially after Bryce Miller had an absolutely amazing start on Thursday, and it feels like maybe I'm off base on this. The Mariners are trying to figure this out themselves.
You're absolutely right. I think the Mariners look at this as kind of a week-by-week plan, maybe even a start-by-start plan, because Logan Gilbert, prior to that start on Saturday, was one of the best pitchers in the American League over about a month and a half stretch. So I think the Mariners looked at that and they're like, well, why are we messing with him? We should have some flexibility here. And I'm kind of glad that they did, because he ended up going 7 innings in that start on Saturday. The unfortunate thing, though, is that the piggyback where they were planning on using Gilbert and Hancock in that start, they then had to use Gilbert and then Jose Ferrer, one of their best lefties, out of the bullpen that day. And then the following day got in trouble in the 8th inning, needing a left-handed reliever to come in. Unfortunately, they brought in a guy named Josh Simpson, who, career minor leaguer, a guy really just kind of there to fill a spot in the bullpen. He was the only lefty they could have used in that spot. Game fell apart for the Mariners. They lost coming into that inning with a 4-1 lead. They gave up 5 runs, ended up losing 6-5 on that Sunday finale against the Guardians. So the piggyback kind of blew up in their face in a way that they weren't really expecting, because the bullpen health wasn't up to full strength on that Sunday game. But I do think the Mariners would be best served by just committing to, I think, a 5-man rotation. And if that means moving Luis Castillo to the bullpen, then I think that should absolutely be the move. And I get that they're trying to keep Luis Castillo stretched out in the off chance that they're able to maybe move him at the trade deadline. I think the chances of that happening are pretty slim, especially because of the money he is still owed on his contract after this season. He has 2 more guaranteed years on his contract beyond this year at about $24 million per. That's going to be a tough number for teams to swallow, especially because he's going to be age 34, age 35 in those seasons. He has not looked like himself this year, so that's going to be a really interesting situation to watch over the next 4 weeks here as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline. But ultimately, I think the 5-man rotation is where it's at for the Mariners long term. Bryce Miller has been amazing this season. It is pretty remarkable to watch him pitch every 5th day. You mentioned the 7 shutout innings he had on Thursday. His ERA was already below 2 heading into that start. I kind of wonder if, maybe it's a little too late, but he has definitely looked the part of an all-star this year. I wonder if maybe he is kind of making a late case to be added to the festivities in Philadelphia, because he has been the Mariners' best starting pitcher here in 2026.
Yeah, he certainly has been, and it has been interesting to take a look at this rotation, to say the least, as Curtis Rogers, who does such great work over at 710 Seattle Sports, joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And it feels like we've got a lot of these teams out there in the American League. Like, the Red Sox are one of those teams, Rangers are one of those teams, and dare I say the Seattle Mariners are as well. Pitching has been really good for these teams. Like, the starting rotation with the Mariners is honestly a good problem to have. The offense has really not been great. Like, even in the game that we saw on Thursday, there wasn't a lot of offensive boom from the Seattle Mariners, to say the least. Their lone run came because they got walked in with the bases loaded. How do we take a look at the Mariners and just the overall American League in general, where there's so many teams with good pitching, Guardians certainly one of them, and not a lot of offense?
Yeah, it is really weird, especially this time of year with the temperature warming up across Major League Baseball. summertime is usually a time when you see offenses take a step forward. And it is weird how it's kind of been the opposite this year. It makes me wonder if, maybe they're not using like juiced baseballs in some years that they've definitely used, especially, with the CBA negotiations being what they are. It sounds like things have been pretty contentious. It's heading towards a lockout. This would be definitely a year where Major League Baseball would want to suppress offense. Now, this might be me wearing a tinfoil hat, but we've seen it in the past. I remember the 2019 season, the juice baseball was definitely a thing, or at least that's what the data would tell us, where home runs were flying out of the yard left and right. We saw records fall. I believe the Minnesota Twins and the New York Yankees both surpassed the previous single-season home run total that year. But right now, it has just been kind of an uphill battle for offense across Major League Baseball. You mentioned it here in Seattle. The slugging is way down across the board for everybody. There really is nobody on this team that is outslugging expectations of what they had a year ago. I'd say Randy Arozarena has been the most consistent bat in their lineup, and he only has 8 home runs this year. It has been just kind of a power outage across Major League Baseball. Velocity's up for a lot of guys, spins up. Pitching has never been harder to hit than what it is right now. And you make all these changes. We thought the pitch clock would increase offense. We thought the banning of the shift would increase offense. And, early on it had, but again, pitchers are going to adapt. The scouting reports are going to get, sharper than they've ever been. It just kind of is the ebb and flow of baseball right now. But hopefully, once we get past the All-Star break, once we get into the dead of summer here, once we get to August, hopefully we're seeing, a lot more offense across the game, because offense puts a lot of butts in seats and makes games a lot more fun, a lot more craziness across Major League Baseball. So hopefully we start to see an uptick in offense here rather quickly.
Yeah, it has been wild what we've been seeing out of a lot of these teams this far this season. Then you got one or two teams like the Houston Astros that they have been the complete opposite of that thus far this season. So it makes it an interesting landscape. And we've been talking about the American League so much and how there's really not a lot of teams that we can buy in on. But this could be an American League team or a National League team, because I think in the National League there's a clear big three right now with the Atlanta Braves, the Milwaukee Brewers, and then the Dodgers. But is there a team or two outside those main big three that you're looking at and you're feeling good about them, and they might be able to provide a little bit of upside and get on a win streak here relatively soon?
Well, I look across the American League right now, and a team that is definitely sticking around is the Houston Astros. They're a team that coming into this weekend had won 5 straight series, and they hadn't really put together a streak of 7, 8, 9 wins in a row or anything like that. But if you plod along, win 2 of 3 every series, that's going to equate to a 93 win total. Now, not to say that the Astros are going to finish with 93 wins, because they would basically have to double their win total in the season's second half. In fact, they'd have to more than double their win total. They'd have to go on quite a heater here over the season's final 70 games or so, which I don't think that would happen, because they're just, outside of Yordan Alvarez, outside of, Christian Walker, Jose Altuve has not looked good this year. Keith Smith has not looked good this year. Jeremy Pena has been in and out of the lineup due to injury. I don't think they have the capabilities of going like that, but they're definitely a team that after the start to the season that they had, people kind of wrote them off, myself included. I didn't think they'd be here this late into the season, but lo and behold, you look up and, oh, by the way, the Houston Astros, they are still very much in the thick of things in the American League West, because no one has grabbed the reins in that division.
Yeah, no question about it. It has been a bizarre division. The one thing that we know is that the Angels have pretty much eliminated themselves from that division. And hey, even some people might try to argue that they might be alive. I will not make that argument, but the one argument I'll make is that Curtis is one of the hardest working men that you're going to find in this industry. Curtis, you're doing an amazing job covering the Seattle Mariners. You're doing a great job taking a look at everything out there in the Pacific Northwest and so much more. So let the good people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, we got a lot of great content coming out this week. We were able to speak to Jeff Passan like we do every single week on the station. Also, Bob Nightingale of USA Today. He stopped by too. Lots and lots of great baseball content every single day. We churn it out at seattlesports.com, Seattle Sports YouTube page. We're in the epicenter of the sports universe on Monday with the World Cup, round of 16, Team USA coming back to Seattle, so I'll be dodging traffic that day like crazy. It's going to be a madhouse here in Seattle with probably over 100,000 people in the downtown area. I'm looking forward to it. And Greg, always happy to hop on, talk some baseball with you. It is summertime, and I love this time of year. Baseball every single day. It's the absolute best. I look forward to our next conversation.
No question about it. We're going to need to get the good people some Washington beer recommendations as well. We've got a lot of people visiting from outside the country, and let me tell you, Fremont Brewing out there in the great state of Washington, that is certainly one that you want to put on your bucket list. Elysian, unfortunately, is now a part of the AB sort of system, but they have some solid ones as well, but nothing's more solid than a great chat with Curtis Rogers. A big thanks to him for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Coming next, it is that time to podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. It's always a pleasure to be joined by Curtis Rogers, who does such amazing work over at 710 Seattle Sports, taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights, and he did so once again today. So a big thanks, Curtis, for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that, as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @GUnit_81, and we're going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first in time order, then the American League games in time order, and the Interleague games. Those will be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So how about if we get things started? This is 9:51, 9:52 on the card. The Cubs, they are going to be playing against the Cardinals. Andre 3000 Palante is on the bump for the Cards, and David Peterson, great name, he goes for the Cubs, and Cubs are between -124 to -131 favorites, +106 to +110. And number on St. Louis, opening total is a 10.5. Right now, seeing the under at a -115 and the over to -105. I do like the under. I did set my total here at a 10.3. Now, you're going to be able to get some pretty solid hitting conditions out there at Wrigley Field. Right now, it looks like the wind is going to be blowing out, and it's going to be blowing out a little bit more directionally. It's going to get up to 10 miles per hour, but it's going to be a bit more directional, so it's not going to be like out. Now it is going to be like 80 plus degrees outside, so that'll help things out a little bit, but I honestly believe that David Peterson is better than what his ERA would indicate. Now for David Peterson, it's been a no good, very bad, terrible season with a 5.86 ERA, but in his debut for the Cubs, he gives up 2 runs in 5 2/3 innings, so that's a good mark, and he's got a 5.86 ERA, but a 3.92 fielding dependent, 0.9 home runs allowed per 9 innings. Now the 3.7 walks per 9, that's a little bit of an issue, but I think that he's going to round into form a little bit here. And then for our good friend Andre 3000 Palante, he has not been giving up 3,000 runs. He's got more of a 3.83 ERA, but closer to 3.97 fielding dependent. He's only getting about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, so the ball is going to be in play quite a bit. And for the Chicago Cubs, they've just had a tough time driving men in, as you've got Alex Bregman along the Happ towards the top of the big leagues in terms of men left on base. Now you do have P. Crow Armstrong really coming into his own. 19 home runs, 375 on base. He's been a top 5 hitter in all of baseball over the last 45 or so days, and you do have quite a few guys on this Cubs team that have an on-base percentage of, we're going to call it between about a 330 to a 360. Miguel Amaya, Michael Conforto, Bregman, who I mentioned before, Ian Happ, who does have 17 home runs himself, and then Carson Kelly's a little bit above that with a 368 on base, but it feels like it's a little bit up, down, all around. Dansby Swanson's up to 16 home runs, but he's also hitting at 210. He's had a few massive outbursts, and then he's been a very all-or-nothing hitter thus far this season. And then when it comes to the bullpen, it is a team that is dealing with the injuries to the likes of Daniel Palencia and Hobie Milner, so they are quite down with regards to that bullpen. Ethan Roberts has seen his ERA go above a 4, but Ryan Rolson has been very rock solid. He's been able to give you a sub-2 ERA. Jacob Webb is starting to have that increase. He's up to about a 350 or so with regards to his ERA, but Jordan Wicks has actually been a solid long guy for the team, not such a good starter, and Daniel Palencia, I know that he's been dealing with a little bit of ailment as well. And then for the St. Louis Cardinals, they are in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of their own bullpen ERA. You've had rather than guys like a Matt Savanson, Ryan Stanek provide an ERA that's above a 5. I like Gordon Gustafo, but he's seen his ERA go up to about a 3.50. Same goes for George Soriano, and then Riley O'Brien. It's been a roll of the dice for the Cardinals. They average about 5.1 runs per game away from home, actually even more than that, so they've been a top 3 team in terms of run creation away from home. Jordan Walker, 18 home runs, about a 340 on base, and then Alec Burleson, also about a 340 on base. Vavon Herrera has really carried the mail with a 390 on base and a double-figure amount of homers. J.J. Weatherall, 360 on base, and in a small sample size, I've liked Lars Nootbaar along Nelson Velasquez. They move the line as well, but I do think that this total is just a little bit too high. I did somebody total 10.3. I like the under, and with the way that the Cardinals are really producing offense away from home. And then with regards to the side, going to be looking at some late night line movement. If we can get more like a minus 115, minus 120 on the Cubs, we'll be looking there. If we get more of a plus 120 or greater, looking at the St. Louis Cardinals again. Right now, not seeing a ton of that overnight, so that'll be determined in the AM to go along with this total to the under. 953, 954 on the card. It's the Pirates. They walk the plank to Washington to face off against the Nationals as Foster Griffin is on the bump for the Nats and Mitch Keller for the Pirates. Pirates are between plus 110 to plus 115 underdogs, minus 130 to minus 135 is that number on Washington. 9.5 is the total, over and under anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115, and I do like the under. I set my total at a 9.4. For Mitch Keller, he has been pitching to a lot of contact. It's been a career low strikeouts per 9 innings rate, and that has helped his ERA go up to a 4.87 as he's only getting about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings. He does keep the ball in the yard, though, 0.9 home runs per 9 innings. And throughout his career, Mitch Keller has typically been significantly better when he has been at home rather than away from home, but a little bit of a reverse split this year, closer to a 3.96 ERA when he has been away from home. And then for Foster Griffin, the regressive monster might be coming for him sooner rather than later, as the ERA is pretty rock solid at 2.93, but feel he depended more around about a 4.21, 9 strikeouts to 2.3 walks per 9 innings, but he is giving up the 1.5 home runs per 9 innings, so a little bit concerning there. He does go up against a Pirates team that hasn't been quite the same with their offense when they've been away from home rather than at home for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Right now, they are supplying 5.5 runs per game at home, numero uno in all of baseball. Goes down to about 4.7 runs per game away from home, and for the Nationals, they average about 5.35 runs per game. That is just tops in all of baseball. They've really been hammering lefties this year, by the way, so Mitch Keller being a righty, that'll help him out a little bit, but James Wood has given you good wood over 20 home runs, and his on-base percentage has been above a 375. CJ Abrams, he's up to 18 plus home runs. He's been able to give you over 350 on base. I recognize that Curtis Mead doesn't necessarily hit for a lot of average, but 14 home runs, about a 325 on base. Luis Garcia's all of a sudden up to 16 home runs. He's been able to about a 280 down. Lyles move the line for the team along Jover Vivas and some of these other ancillary guys. And then for the Nationals, bullpen has been all sorts of terrible as far as the season. Let's call it what it is. That said, you do have a few guys like a PJ Pullen who's been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. Richard Dickey Lovelady has been okay for the team along with Orlando Revolta, Clean Beater. These guys are below a 4 ERA. I think so Paxton Schultz, Gus Farland, they have been all sorts of awful. Mitchell Parker as well, man. Not been great, but also for the Pittsburgh Pirates, not like this has been some sort of an amazing bullpen. We've seen Dennis Santana have his ERA well above a 4 this far this season. It's approaching 5. Same with Gregory Soto. He has really hit the toilet bowl recently. Yohan Ramirez has actually been okay for the team, but they had Justin Lawrence be so bad that they had to DFA him. And then when it comes to the lineup, you're still dealing with Yonyo Cruz injury. Brandon Lau has gotten loud. He's up to 20 home runs. Doesn't necessarily hit for a ton of average, but Brian Reynolds gives you a 395 on base. Spencer Horwitz a 386 on base. You've been able to have some relatively good production on Ryan O'Hearn, 13 home runs, 340 on base. Nick Gonzalez is hitting about a 300. So interesting circumstance here. I think both starters do just enough to keep you under. So do like the under. So my total 9.4. It's for the Nationals. Set them at a minus 136. So one to lay up to a minus 135 on that money line. 955, 956 on the card. It's the Braves. They're going to be playing out to the New York Mets as Christian Scott, great Scott, is on the bump for the Mets, and Grant Holmes goes for the Bravos. The Braves, who find themselves between minus 116 to minus 126, minus 102 to plus 110 is a number on the Metropolitans. 9 to 9.5 is the total on the 9. Over is minus 120. The under is even on the 9.5. Under is minus 120, and the over is even money. And with the Atlanta Braves, set them at a minus 144. I'm going to be in on the money line for Christian Scott. He's done a really good job with his 3.20 ERA. He keeps the ball in the yard, giving up well less than 0.8 home runs per 9 innings, but do have to have a little bit of trepidation with him because he does give up a lot of walks. He has been giving up in that neighborhood of about 4.2 or so walks per 9 innings, go along with his 7.6 strikeouts per 9 innings, and he's backed up by a good bullpen for the New York Mets. This team is number 4 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA, so they have certainly been able to do their part there, but that said, even though you have the likes of AJ Minter, Brooks Raley, Oscar Brisbane, I'll give you a sub-3 ERA. Guess whose bullpen is even better? The Atlanta Braves. They are numero uno So in terms of bullpen ERA, now they are dealing with a little bit of an injury to Robert Suarez, but the Dylan Lee, Dylan Da, Didier Fuentes, along with Racio Iglesias, they've all been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. James Karinchak has given you a sub-2 ERA, small sample size, but he's been good. And for the Braves, they've hit the skids a little bit with their offense, but they're still a top 10 team in terms of run creation. Drake Baldwin hasn't been himself since coming off the injury list, but still 14 home runs, hitting for about a 340 on base this season. Michael Harris, 14 plus bombs, he's hitting just below a 300. Matt Olson, 20 plus home runs, he's hitting at 275. Ozzy, Albies. He and Dom Smith both hitting above a 270 for Albies, double-figure amount of homers. Austin Riley, and then the shortstop spot, it's been a little bit of a revolving door. Needs to pick it up a little bit, but like what these guys are putting out there for the New York Mets, they just have not hit away from home. They are dead last in the National League in terms of road run creation. Juan Soto has been able to do his part. He's been able to give you an on-base percentage that's hovering right around about a 400. His home run count is now up to 17, but outside of that, nobody else is giving you more than 10 home runs. As Mark Vientos, Bo Bichette, and Carson Benjay all at approximately 10 home runs this season, and then for Bichette, Benjay, along with A.J. Ewan, they're all hitting at least a 250 to the credit of Ewan, 352 on base. And when it comes to Brett Beatty and some of the guys at the bottom of the fold, Marcus Semien, whenever he's been out there, they just haven't provided a lot, and Francisco Lindor just has not been amazing himself. So you do have quite a few issues on that front. And then when it comes to the Brave starter and Grant Holmes, he does have his command issues. The overall ERA is not too bad at about a 3.96, but 5.19 fielding to bat, 1.6 home runs, 4.3 walks per 9 innings. But going up against this weak lineup should help, and same with the Braves bullpen backing him up. So I'm in on the Braves, set them at a minus 144 on the money line, and in on the under. Somebody told it at 8.6. 9:57, 9:58 on the card. It's the Giants. They're going to be on the road against the Rockies. Ryan Feltner goes for the Rockies, and right now the betting board reads undecided for the San Francisco Giants. This should be Logan Webb, and opener is the Giants between a minus 156 to a minus 160, plus 130 to plus 135 for Colorado. 10.5 to 11 is the total on the 11. Under is minus 115, over is minus 105 on the 10.5. Over is minus 120, and the under is even money, and I'm going to be in on the Giants here. I set their money line price at a minus 167. I was willing to lay up to a minus 110 on the run line. Right now I'm seeing that opening up at even money to minus 105, so I'm going to take a shot on the run line. Logan Webb was absolutely tremendous in the month of June. He was posting up a sub-2 ERA. He was shaky towards the beginning part of the season, but the fielding independent was pointing towards all sorts of positivity, and the positivity really came for him. Overall for the season for Logan Webb, 309 ERA, 301 fielding independent, giving up just half home run per 9 innings. So that cuts per 9 rate still down right around about at 7.6, and for Logan Webb, he's always been a little bit more shaky when he's been away from home rather than at home, but this year he's actually got a lower road ERA than he does a home ERA, and for Ryan Feltner, he's presentable, which that's more than what can be said for a lot of these Colorado Rockies pitchers. 4.42 ERA, 4.94 fielding, 1.4 home runs, 3.4 walks per 9 innings, but he is getting only 5.9 strikeouts per 9 innings, and that's why I do like the over. I did set my total at 11.3. As for the San Francisco Giants, because of that ballpark, it really suppresses offense. They're averaging only about 3.7 runs per game at home, closer to about 4.35 runs per game when they've been away from home. And for the Giants, you've been able to have Bryce Eldridge be able to come into his own, give you over a 340 on base. He's been regressing a little bit, but all in all, he's been able to give this team a nice little bit of a spark, because you do have about 14 plus home runs out of both Rafael Devers along with William Adames, but Adames below a 280 with regards to the on-base. Devers, he's still below about a 300 on base. I do think that he's up to now 15 home runs, so he's doing a little bit better there, but Casey Schmidt has been your main boom guy. 16 home runs, he's been able to about a 280. You're getting Jungle Lee really going, as he and Luis Arias are both hitting above a 215, and all of a sudden Eloy Ramos is off the injured list as well. That helps out an outfield that's been a little bit touch and go. Flip side, the Colorado Rockies have Mickey Moniak off the injured list. He's been able to do a nice job in terms of supplying some power, as he and TJ Romfield have both been able to give you between 12 and 13 home runs apiece, but how about Hunter Goodman? 27 home runs. He's actually hit much worse when he's been at home rather than away from home, but he is supplying the boom for this team. You need a little bit more towards the bottom of the lineup. Ezekiel Tovar barely hitting above the Mendoza line of 200 along with Brett Sullivan, but still you've got Troy Johnson, who's been able to hit above a 300. Willie Castro's doing a nice job moving the line. Just for the Rockies, it's been a brutal pitching staff for this team. Victor Vodnik has an ERA well above a 5 in the bullpen. You've been able to get a few relatively solid innings out of the likes of a Brandon Bernardino, Blas Castano as well, but Castano now hits the injured list. Both of those guys had a sub-4 ERA. Antonio Senzatella, still a solid season, but he's starting to regress. Jay Nill's been posting up an ERA above a 5. Juan Mejia hits the injured list. He had an ERA above a 6 as well. And for the Giants, they're now in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of bullpen area. We've seen Caleb Killian have his ERA balloon above a 350. Eric Miller just has not been the answer for this team, as he's been supplying over a 4 ERA. Ryan Baruchi has had issues as well. So do you think that you get a higher scoring game like the over? Set my total 11.3. And for the Giants, minus 110 or better, I'm in on the run line. 9:59, 9:60 on the the card. It's the Brewers, and they're going to be on the road against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Jose Cabrera is on the bump for Arizona, and Kyle Harrison is on the bump for the Brewers. Brewers are minus 162 to minus 172 favorites, plus 135 to plus 145 is the number on Arizona. 8.5 is the total. Over is minus 120. Under is even, and if you're looking to lay a run half with the Brewers, that's anywhere between minus 105 to a plus 105, and for the Milwaukee Brewers, I would be willing to take a shot on the run line if we could get to a plus 107 or better. Right now, I'm willing to lay up to a minus 157 on the money line. I do think that when it's all said and done, I should be able to get in on the Brewers, whether that be money line or run line. I think that plus 108 or so will be able to present itself on the run line. So, going to be looking at the Brewers. Just a question of whether or not that's going to be money line or run line, as Kyle Harrison had that one bad start out here in lovely Las Vegas where he gave up a trillion runs. But even with that taken into account, he gave up 8 runs and he only got 7 outs. That's a 2.57 ERA, 3.03 fielding to pen with 11.2 strikeouts per 9 innings. He has been absolutely incredible for this team since that one bad start. And for Jose Cabrera, a little bit of a young gun that you want to see a little bit more from because he's made a few appearances at the big league level. Not great, not terrible. 3.60 ERA. He's gone 10 total innings, given up 4 runs. He did give up a pair of home runs. And if you look at the minor league numbers, because that you're able to get a much bigger sample size out of 3.69 ERA, which considering he made a few appearances out there in the PCO, which is a juice ball league with a lot of elevation, not bad, but it's still not necessarily the world's biggest sample size, so you just are a little bit jury's out on him. And for the Arizona Diamondbacks, the bullpen sans Paul Sewald, who I just do not trust at the closer spot, has been pretty solid. You've had the guys like Jonathan Loaiza, Kevin Ginkel, Ryan Thompson, who have been able to give you a sub 325 ERA. Taylor Clark has been able to give you a sub 250 ERA. So these guys have been able to do a relatively solid job on that front. And then for the Milwaukee Brewers, Abner Uribe, Trevor McGill, they got off to a little bit of a shaky start to the season, both below a 350 ERA. Chad Patrick is able to give you some nice long relief whenever they've had out there Brian Fitzpatrick, which he's been up and down all season long. He's been pretty solid in this bullpen as well. So they've done a nice job in terms of mixing and matching on that front. And for the Brewers, this is a top 4 team in terms of run creation, despite being in the bottom 6 in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis. Jake Bauers has been your main power bat, 15 home runs, 365 on base, but you just take a look at this team. They small ball you to death, and they just find a way to be able to move the line, as you've got likes of Jackson Trujillo, who I mentioned before in Mr. Bauers, Gary Sanchez, Garrett Mitchell, Bryce Terang, William Contreras, all above a 350 on base, and then Andrew Vaughn, 425 on base. He's been a little bit more of a platoon guy, but he's been solid, and then for Trujillo, 12 home runs at about 220 at-bats. Meanwhile, for the Arizona Diamondbacks, it's been a little bit of a power outage for the team. Main home run hitter has been Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte with 17 home runs. He's hitting about a 270, and then Corby Carroll's up to 13 bombs, about a 355 on base. Lone 2 guys have been able to give you a double-figure amount of homers. Now, Geraldo Perdomo, Gabriel Moreno above a 355 on base, but you do need a little bit more. The likes of Lourdes Gurriel, Adrian Del Castro, Ore Barosa down at the bottom of the fold, hitting at 225 or lower. Now, I do think that the offense is going to heat up a little bit, and I do think that the Brewers get to Cabrera here. So I like the over. So my total at 8.6. Whether it's money line or run line, probably going to be run line, going to be in on the Brewers. 961, 962 on the card. The Padres are going to be on the road against the Dodgers. Shohei Ohtani is on the bump for the Dodgers. Michael King hopes to be the king for the Padres, and boy, are the Padres an underdog. Plus 192 to plus $2. Minus 235 to minus 245. That number on Los Angeles. 8 is the total. Over and under both of minus 110. And give me the Padres. Plus 195 or better. I am in on them. Now for Michael King, he's actually doing for a little bit of regression on that ERA because his swing and miss stuff has been down thus far this season. He's down to about 7.8 strikeouts per 9 innings, but give the ball in the yard. 0.9 home runs allowed per 9 innings, 355 ERA compared to a 420 fielding dependent. And for Shohei Ohtani, he's doing for a little bit of regression on that ERA as well. And we have seen him give up 3+ runs in each out of his last 3 starts. Still a fantastic season. 158 ERA, but 257 fielding dependent. He is giving up about 2.7 walks per 9 innings. The command has been going downward a little bit, and he does face off against the Padres team that's been awful with regards to their offense. They are currently dead sinking last in terms of run creation, but they've been better when they've been away from home rather than at home. About 4.3 runs per game away from home, below 3.6 runs per game at home, so that's been a little bit of a wet blanket. That's just what happens when you go to Petco Park. But that said, Fernando Tatis Jr. had a multi-home run game for the first time since dinosaurs roamed the earth. He's up to about a 340 on base. So you need a lot more out of so many of these guys. So in the likes of Jackson Merrill hitting at 215, Jake Cronenworth below the Bedell's 200. We've seen Xander Bogaerts slow pull to about a 235. Gavin Sheets, he does have 14 home runs, but 235 average. Manny Machado, 16 bombs, but hitting a $190. You just need more out of these guys. But for the Padres, aside from that game against the Cubs where they gave up the 23 spot, they've been a good bullpen. Prior to that game, they were a top 5 team in terms of bullpen ERA, and you still have so many guys in this bullpen that are amazing. Mason Miller obviously gets so much of the love with a sub-1 ERA, but Bradley Rodriguez, Yuki Matsui, Wandy Peralta, Jason Adam, Audrey Motohone, all these guys have been able to give you a sub-335 ERA. And then for the Los Angeles Dodgers, it's been a bullpen that's been well-rounded for him. Jack Dreyer's been a little bit up and down. His ERA has ballooned over about a 325, but that said, Tanner Scott is posting up an ERA that's hovering right around about a 2. You've been able to get some good innings as well out of someone like an Alex Vesey has had a sub-3 ERA. Jonathan Hernandez has not been good for this team, but for the Dodgers, what I think is interesting is that they average over 6 runs per game away from him, closer to about 4.45 runs per game when they've been at home. Shohei Ohtani has obviously been incredible. He's been able to give you 18 home runs over a 4-iron base, and then you do have Max Muncy, Andy Paz, Freddie Freeman, all between 14 and 17 home runs. All these guys have been able to hit at least 265. All these guys, aside from Paz, have really been able to give you good on base as well. You're getting back to Oscar Hernandez after he was dealing with a little bit of an injury as well, but that said, I do think that the Padres present a little bit of value here. Like the over, so I might tell it at 8.1 and plus 195 or better in on the Pods money line. 963, 964 on the card. The Twins are going to be on the road against the Yankees as Garrett Cole goes for the Yankees and Michael Paredes is on the bump for the Twins. 9.5 is the total. Overs minus 110 to a minus 120. The unders between even minus 110, minus 178 to minus 186 on the Yankees. Plus 150 to plus 160 is the number on Minnesota. And for Minnesota, needed at least plus $3 to be able to take a shot here. I was willing to lay up to a minus 104 on the Yankees run line. Right now we're finding that right around about a plus 110, so I'm going to be in there. For Mike Paredes, he honestly has not been bad here at the big league level. For Paredes, it's been a relatively small sample size thus far, but he's been able to keep things out in front of him, posting up a 4.26 ERA. The fielding independent is a 5.44 because he does not get a lot of swing and misses. 4.6 strikeouts per 9 innings, but 3.2 walks, 1.4 home runs per 9 innings. It's better than what the bullpen has been providing because the Minnesota Twins, out of 30 teams right now, they are 30th in terms of bullpen ERA. There's just nobody reliable in this bullpen. In a Twins uniform and a Twins uniform only, Andres Gomez has been able to give you a sub-350 ERA. I think he's the only one in this bullpen that's right now supplying a sub-350 ERA. Like, holy crud, this has been really, really bad. You've got just so many of these guys like Marco Rea, Cody Funderburg, Cody Lawyerson, Eric Orze, Taylor Rogers, Travis Adams. All these guys are above like a 4.30 ERA, so not great to say the least. And then for the Minnesota Twins, they've been a top 10 team in terms of run creation. You've got Byron Buxton, who's been in and out of the lineup a little bit, 25 home runs. He's hitting about 270. Josh Bell really had himself a good month of June. He's been able to round into form. He's back up to 11 home runs. Brooks Lee, Cody Clemens, 14 home runs apiece, both hitting between about a 240 to a 250. You've been able to get some better production out of Royce Lewis since he came back from the minor league level. Still a little bit suspect there, but Trevor Larnach, he's been able to give you about a 380 or so on base. And for the New York Yankees, they've been averaging less than 3.5 runs per game over their last about 14 or so games. They've really toilet bowled over the last few weeks, and they just seem to get a win at this point. Ben Rice continues to give you 23 home runs, 360 on base, but without Aaron Judge, he has been very much exposed. You've had Paul Goldschmidt be able to give you 14 home runs, 340 on base. Cody Bellinger's up to about a 350 on base, but just feels like this entire offense is toilet bowled, and the young guys like Spencer Jones, Yasan Dominguez, they just have not been able to step up for the team. The catcher spot has been a mess. Ryan McMahon is only getting 210, and for the Yankees, it's been in the upper half of the big leagues towards the opening ERA now. Camilo Duvall continues to supply over a 4.25 ERA, and David Benhar has been pooping the Benhar a little bit recently, but down to about a 3.09 ERA. Brent Hendrick, along with Paul Blackburn, sub 250 ERA along with Fernando Cruz, but I do think that Garrett Cole is going to round into form after he was a big giant lump of coal in his last two starts. 3+ runs allowed in both of those for Garrett Cole. Swing and miss stuff was down a little bit coming off the injury list. I do think that it's going to come back to him. He has been giving up 1.7 home runs per 9 innings, so 4.06 ERA, 460 fielding dependent, but back above 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. Do trust in the under, so my total 9.2. And for the Yankees, we'll want to lay up to a minus 104 on their run line. 965, 966 on the card. The White Sox are going to be on the road against the Guardians. Gavin Williams is on the bump for the Cleveland Guardians, and Anthony Kay says okay to another start, and the total is 8.5. The under and the over are both at minus 105 to a minus 115 for Cleveland. They're between minus 130 to minus 135, plus 112 to plus 115 is that number on the White Sox. I'm in on the Guardians. I set their money line price at a minus 146 now. I do recognize that you've had some hard contact issues when it comes to Gavin Williams. For Williams, he overall for the season has been supplying you with a 381 ERA, 1.3 home runs per 9 innings, but he's getting the 10.4 strikeouts per 9 innings, and he has been all the better when he has been at home. For Gavin Williams, that drops to about 0.9 home runs allowed per 9 innings and a ERA of a 2.74 now. He's backed up by a lineup that entering into yesterday over the last 25 games was averaging less than 3.3 runs per game. The Jose Ramirez injury has taken a lot out of them, but same with the Angel Martinez injury because he was actually leading the way in terms of total home runs for this team. Now, you do have Travis Bazzana, Chase Lauder, along with as well Brian Rocchio, all giving you between a 335 to a 345 on base. And Kyle Manzardo's been a little bit better here recently, but still, it's been quite rough to say the least. And for the Guardians, they're just not the same bullpen that they have been in the past. Like you've been throwing out there, Espino's been posting up an ERA above a 7. Eric Sobrowski has been a little bit shaky since coming off the injury list. Hunter Gaddis is starting to run back in the form, down below a 375 ERA. Tim Aaron has been relatively solid, and Cade Smith has been able to close out some games, but definitely you expected a little bit more there. And then on the flip side, you've got a Chicago White Sox bullpen that has been about league average in terms of ERA, which I will say is better than what I expected. You still have Serenity Dominguez, who's not a trustworthy closer, and then Trevor Richards is a roll of the dice along with Brandon Iser, but Sean Newcomb, Brian Hudson, Grant Taylor, these guys have been able to give you a sub 325 ERA, but it's just hard to be able to trust in Anthony Kay in this spot because he doesn't necessarily get a lot of strikeouts. 450 ERA, 7.3 strikeouts, 3.5 walks per 9 innings, about 1.3 home runs allowed per 9 innings, and I do think that this is going to be a little bit of a lower scoring game, even though the White Sox, they themselves have been a top 10 team in terms of run creation. Even with having Mataka Mirakami out, you've had Colson Montgomery be able to supply about 21 to 22 home runs. From his batting average has really not been there. He's been hitting just a hair above a 220 for much of the season, but you still have a guy like a Miguel Vargas, 19 plus bombs, 355 on base. Sam Antonazzi has made a move line with about a 395 on base, and then even towards the bottom of the lineup, Chase Meadross, Tristan Peters, they're right around about a 345 on base, and you've been able to get some good production as well out of the young infielder and Jacob Gonzalez. So interesting circumstance here. I do think that Williams going to go out there, shut it down. I like the underside by total 7.9, and for the Guardians, willing to lay up down minus 145 on the money line. 967, 968 on the card. The Rays are on the road against the Astros as Spencer Arrighetti, no, not Mom Spaghetti, is on the ball for the Astros. Yet to be fully announced for the Rays, but this should be Nick Martinez going for them. Right now, it's a pick'em game, minus 108 on both sides, 8.5 is the total, under is minus 115, over is minus 105, and I'm in on the Rays. I set them at a minus 133, assuming we get Nick Martinez here, and even if we don't get Nick Martinez, I probably still would be siding with the Tampa Bay Rays because Spencer Arrighetti, well, he's been throwing up Mom Spaghetti recently. 3+ runs allowed in each out of his last 5 starts. He has given up 4+ runs in 4 of them. The regression monster has come from Hardy, has given up 6 home runs in his last 9 innings pitch, as he's got a 4 ERA, 465 fielding dependent, and the 4.6 walks per 9 innings are a concern. And what is a little bit of a concern for Nick Martinez is that he pitches just a lot of general contact. Right now for Nick Martinez, he's posting up a 266 ERA, higher 372 fielding dependent, but he's been a master of soft contact. 0.9 home runs, 1.6 walks allowed per 9 innings, but still, when you're getting 5.5 strikeouts per 9 innings at the MLB level, that always has to be a little bit concerning. And for the Tampa Bay Rays, they've been in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Cole Sulzer has just really not been too reliable for the team. Now, they've had a few nice pickups. Cam Boucher, Casey Lugumina have been able to give you a sub 330 ERA, and I do like what I've seen out of Brian Baker this far this season. Then when it comes to this Rays lineup, Junior Caminero, a home run in like 7 out of his last 8 games. This guy's been absolutely superb. He's giving you, right now, 24 bombs overall for the season, 380 on base. But then Jonathan Aranda, Yandy Diaz, both of these guys 12+ home runs. They're both give you over 390 on base. Chandler Simpson, one of the better base stealers in all baseball. He's hitting at 275. You've had Nick Fortes hit above a 250. Richie Palacios about a 330 on base. So a lot of guys are stepping up for the team. And then for the Astros, it's a little bit of top-heavy lineup. Yordan Alvarez, 25+ home runs. He's been providing well above a 400 on base. And then Christian Walker, not necessarily the world's greats with the average right around about a 240, but 18+ bombs out of him. You've been able to have Jeremy Pena along with Isaac Paredes. Both give you over 340 on base. Paredes, one of the best pull hitters in all baseball. Never going to go the other way, but it's a lot of the outfielders that just have not been able to give you a whole heck lot. These guys like Jake Myers, Cam Smith, Bryce Miller, Joey Looper Fido are all hitting at 235 or lower. When they tried out Zach Cole, Zach DeZenzo, some of these other mix and match guys, they weren't necessarily panning out as well. And then at the catcher spot, Yanier Diaz gives you a little bit of power, but he's got less than a 280 on base, and the Astros still a bottom 12 team in terms of bullpen ERA. Yel de los Santos, well above a 450 ERA. AJ Bluebod's actually rounded into form of Brian Abreu, north of a 5 ERA himself. It's been a roll of the dice with Nate Pearson in that bullpen as well. So it's a very fascinating circumstance. I do think that Martinez sees a little bit of regression, but I think that the Rays get to Arrighetti. So I like the over, so I tell it at 8.7 for the Rays. Willing to lay up to a minus 132 on that money line. 969, 970 on the card. It's the Red Sox. They're going to be on the road against the Angels as Jake Bennett is going to be on the bum for the Red Sox, and it is currently listed as undecided for the Angels. Right now, they open up at a minus 116, minus 102 on Boston with a total of 8. Over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. This should be Reed Detmers here. here, and even if you get Detmers, which is the best possible outcome for the Angels, I'm going to be in on the Boston Red Sox. I did set the Red Sox at a minus 126. For Reed Detmers, I mean, this is not a fate of him. I actually really like what I've seen out of him thus far this season, and I feel like he's pitched much better than the ERA of a 3.80 would indicate. 296 fielding dependent, 10.1 strikeouts, 2.8 walks per 9 innings, while giving up 0.7 home runs per 9 innings, but man, this bullpen is in the bottom 8 in terms of ERA. They had to play late on Thursday against the Seattle Mariners as well, so you've got a lot of that going on, and you just never know what you're going to get out of this Angels bullpen. Chase Silseth has been able to give you a sub-350 ERA, and Sam Bachman has been relatively presentable. Jose Fermin, a little bit touch and go, but Brent Suter well above a 4 ERA. Kirby Yates has been touch and go. He's been a little bit better here recently, but Mitch Ferris is a year-long guy. That's not necessarily a place where you want to be, and for the Angels, they've been significantly worse with their offense when they've been at home rather than away from home. Where this Angels bunch are averaging about 4.95 runs per game away from home, 4.02 runs per game at home. That is a bottom 8 mark in all of baseball, and you're dealing with the injury to Mike Trout. That is all sorts of issues. Now, they've been able to get good production out of Zach Neto, who's been able to give you 15 plus home runs. Doesn't have for a lot of average, right around about at 225, but the on base has still been relatively okay for them. And then you've been able to have Joe Adell set fire to the rain. He's been able to give you 11 home runs, hitting for a 250 on base percentage. Again, not necessarily been amazing, but I do think that there's going to be a fall off with some of these guys like Wade Meckler, Donovan Walton. These guys have come from absolutely nowhere whatsoever and have been able to produce for the team. And then on the other end, you've got a bunch in the Boston Red Sox that have been really good with their bullpen. They've been in the top 6 in terms of ERA, and I do think that Jake Bennett is going to be able to go out there and give you a good start. Maybe he's not like a swing and miss typhoon or anything like that, 327 ERA, but 311 fielding dependent, 0.5 home runs, 1.9 walks per 9 innings, only getting about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, and we have seen Aroldis Chapman toil up a little bit, but go back to Sunday Night Baseball. That was not on him. That was on the Little League outfield of Weiler Abreu and company, but Garrett Whitlock has been able to give you sub 325 ERA. Teron Guerrero, he's been filling in because he's had injuries to a few of these mix and match guys like Tyler Semenijo. He's been relatively solid. The big thing for the Red Sox has been a total lack of offense for this team. They're currently about a 5 team in terms of run creation. Wilson Contreras has had to carry the mail, 18 home runs, about a 375 on base. You've got Jaron Duran up to 12 home runs, 10 plus of them since the beginning of the month of May, but $196 average, 251 on base. Carlos Narvaez is sitting below the Mendoza 200. Andrew Marisario is giving you nothing whatsoever. Now, you do have a few guys that are in that neighborhood. We're going to call it about a 325 to a 345 on base. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, Nate Eaton, Masataka Yoshida, Weiler Abreu, Ceddanne Rafaela are all right there, but man, it's been a little bit touch and go. But the Red Sox, they've been a much better team away from home rather than at home. I do think that you get a lower scoring game here. I did somebody tell it at 8.1. I just think that the Angels are too trustworthy to be able to trust this under with. So, on the over end, I like the Red Sox on the money line. I set them at a minus 126. 971, 972 on the card. The Blue Jays are going to be on the road against the Mariners as Luis Castillo goes for the Mariners. Dylan Cease and Deceased is on the bump for the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays minus 124 on the money line, plus 106 for Seattle. 7.5 is a total. Under is minus 120, and the over is even. And I do like the under. It did set my total at a 7.2. Seattle's best ballpark pretty much in all of baseball in terms of suppressing offense, and Dylan Cease, he has been a machine when it comes to getting strikeouts. Now, the command can be a little bit all over the place, 4.3 walks per 9 innings, but 13.8 strikeouts per 9 innings, a 3.02 ERA, fielding dependent, right in that neighborhood, about a 2.37. And for Dylan Cease, he's been able to perform quite well on the road this far this season as well. That ERA only goes up to about a 3.34 away from home, still giving up less than 0.9 home runs per 9 innings. And for Luis Castillo, it's just been an up-down all-around season. He's really starting to age, not so gracefully, 4.93 ERA. Now, the 3.94 fielding dependent indicates some positivity here. 1.1 home runs, 3.1 walks allowed per 9 innings, but yeah, seen a little bit of a dip in his swing and miss stuff to about 8.6 strikeouts per 9 innings, and it is a Blue Jays team that is currently in the bottom 10 in terms of total run creation, but that said, they've been able to do a nice job in terms of just being able to put bat to ball, and that they are a top 3 team in terms of fewest strikeouts on a per at-bat basis. You've got a lot of guys like AC Sanchez, Nathan Lukes, Hendrik Pinago, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Ernie Clement, these guys who have been able to above a 265, but for Guerrero, he's only been able to give you 4 home runs as far this season. You need quite a bit more there. Pretty much Kazuma Okamoto is the lone guy on the roster has been able to give you 10 plus bombs, 18 home runs, about a 325 on base, and then you've had Dalton Varsho be able to give you about a 330 on base as well. For the Blue Jays, it's a little bit of top-heavy bullpen because you're able to trust in Louis Varland along with Tyler Rogers. Both of these guys have been incredible. Give you a sub-2 ERA on both guys. For Mason Flaherty, it's been all over the place. He and Braden Fisher above a 350 ERA. Jeff Hoffman has been absolutely terrible. Whenever they've thrown out there some of these guys like Yariel Rodriguez, it just has not panned out for them. Meanwhile, for the Seattle Mariners, they're banged up in their bullpen, but they continue to be a top 10 team in terms of bullpen ERA. Matt Brash, along Cooper Criswell are on the injury list, but Gabe Spire, Jose Ferrer, Edward Bazardo Conforto. They've all been able to give you a sub-3 ERA, and same for Nick Davila. He's been pretty solid as well. And then for the Mariners, they are in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of run creation. Cal Raleigh just has not duplicated what he did a season ago, hitting below the Bedell side of 200 still. And then you've got Dom Canzone, Julio Rodriguez, Luke Raley, all between 13 and 14 home runs this season. Raley not really giving you a lot of average. Rodriguez hitting at 260, and then Dom Canzone 350 on base. And then you've had J.P. Crawford give you 10 home runs. The batting average is at 214, closer to a 330 on base. But these guys like Leo Rivas, Mitch Garver, you got a lot of guys at the bottom line hitting below 220. Even Colt Emerson, who's been able to give you some homers, but he's hitting for less than a 300 on base. That's a little bit of an issue. So I think they get lower scoring games, set by total 7.2. And for the Blue Jays, we'll delay up to minus 124 on the money line, set them at minus 125. 973, 974 on the card. It's the Orioles. They're going to be on the road against the Reds. And yes, we're on to Cincinnati. He's on to Brady Singer, who hopes to have Baltimore singing the blues. And Trevor Rogers is on the bum for Baltimore. Baltimore, a favorite of minus 120 to minus 125, even money to plus 110. That number on Cincinnati, 9.5 to 10 is the total on the 9.5. Over is minus 115, the under is minus 105. On the 10, under is minus 110 to a minus 120, and the over is between even and minus 110. And I set the Reds at a minus 132. I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the money line for Trevor Rogers. It's just been a very strange year in general for him. For Rogers, he's been better than the 4.99 ERA would indicate, 3.99 fielding depending. He's only giving up one home run per 9 innings, but pitching to a lot of contact, 6.9 strikeouts per 9 innings. The bullpen has been a little bit better with Keegan Aiken currently on the fold, so that helps. But Andrew Kittredge, he has been all sorts of awful for the team thus far this season. You do have two guys, Ynier Cano, Rico Garcia, who've been solid. Grant Wolfram, I guess, hasn't been awful, but man, it's a bullpen that's been shaky. Ryan Elsley, since coming off the injury list, you don't know what to expect there. And for the Orioles, they do take a little bit of a fall off with their offense when they're away from home. At home, this is a unit that's averaging about 4.8 runs per game, closer to about 3.2 runs per game when they're away from home. And well, Gunnar Henderson has been able to give you a whole bunch of bombs. He's up to 17 plus home runs this season. Gunnar Henderson also giving you less than a 300 on base. So that's been an issue. You've got Pete Alonso, 19 home runs, about a 340 on base. Leody Taveras has been able to move line, hitting about a 250. And then Samuel Basayo, Taylor Ward, Adley Rushman, all in between about 250 to 260. And Ward down to 5 home runs after he had 30 plus with the Angels last season, about a 380 on base. That's going to play. Blaze Alexander has been solid, but these guys like Colton Cowles or Tyler O'Neill at the bottom of the lineup, Jackson Holiday, they've been all sorts of issues. And then for the Cincinnati Reds, they were able to get to Jacob Mizorowski yesterday, as cousin Sal Stewart has been able to give you 15 plus home runs, and then you've got JJ Bleday, coupled with Ellie David Cruz, who have both been able to give you 12 plus bombs apiece. Both of these guys between about a 330 to a 340, a 5-ish on base, and then Eugenio Suarez, you just need a little bit more here. He hasn't given you a lot of homers, 280 on base, but Nathaniel Lowe up to about a 340 on base. Bottom of the lineup with some of these guys like a Matt McClain, TJ Friedel, Navali Marte, hitting at 215 or lower is an issue, and the Reds, they themselves have been a bottom 10 team in terms of bullpen ERA, but it's been better ever since Caleb Ferguson has come off the injury list. He's giving you a sub-3 ERA. TJ Antone, Brock and Roll Burke, along Sam Moe, Pierce Johnson. These are guys give you a sub-375 ERA. Don't necessarily love Emilio Pagan, but him coming off the injury list, better than some of the guys that you've had out there. And for Brady Singer, it has been an awful season for him. He's been better recently. 3 earned runs or fewer allowed in 5 out of his last 6 starts. He's still giving up the 2.2 home runs per 9 innings, 5.12 ERA. 582 fielding dependent, but I do like the way that he's rounding into form, and I do think that the Reds get the job done here. So the Reds at a minus 132, taking their money line, and I like the under, so I told 9.4. Wrap things up with 975, 976. You've got the Marlins. They're going to be on the road against the Athletics. Jack Perkins goes for the Athletics. Tyler Phillips for the Marlins. The Marlins do find themselves as a slim underdog here of plus 110. Meanwhile, minus 120 to minus 130 is the number on the Athletics. 10.5 is the total, over and under any between minus 105 to a minus 115. And for the Marlins, I'm in on them. I set them at a minus 118 on the money line. Now, I will say for Jack Perkins, he is doing for a lot of positivity, as right now he's got an ERA that is a 6, but a 362 fielding dependent, 10.9 strikeouts per 9 innings, just a hair above a home run per 9, gives up a few walks, but all in all, he's pitched much better than that ERA would indicate. Meanwhile, for Tyler Phillips, 302 ERA, but a little bit of higher, 439 fielding dependent, 6.9 strikeouts, 4.1 walks per 9 innings are a little bit of a concern, but this Marlins bullpen entered in the day on Thursday, 3rd in the big leagues in terms of ERA at a 339. Went up a little bit because, well, Coors Field is going to do that to you, but so you've got the likes of a Michael Peterson, great name, John King, both guys who have been able to give you a sub 350 ERA. They are dealing with the injury to Anthony Bender, and I will say it's been a rough season for the closer, Pete Fairbanks, but I do think that he's going to round into form sooner rather than later. And then Lake Bakar has been a really good long guy for the team as well. And for the Athletics, they continue to be a bottom 6 team in terms of a bullpen ERA. Luis Medina, Jeff Hartley, Jose Suarez, who's on the paternity list, along with even someone like an Elvis Alvarado. All these guys give you a 4+ ERA. Justin Cerner has been hovering right around about a 4 as well. For the Athletics, they've also been dealing with quite a few injuries in terms of lineup. You now have back out of the fold Zach Galafalon, Jacob Wilson, and Tyler Soderstrom, who really had himself a nice June before going on the injury list. Jeff McNeil has just not been able to give you a lot of power. Nick Kurtz, Shea Langoliers, 19+ home runs, and Kurtz well above at 400 on base. Henry Bolte has been able to hit 300 for the team as well, but Lawrence Butler or Kobe Thomas, they're not giving you much. Alika Williams has been able to above a 260, which I like, but even Carlos Cortez has been dealing with a little bit of injury as well, and he was the guy that was really stepping up for the team as well. Meanwhile, for the Miami Marlins, they just go death by a million cuts for you. They are a bottom 6 team in terms of home runs out of at-bat basis. They just got back Liam Mix, their main boom guy, who's been able to give you 13 home runs this season on base percentage right around about a 360, but Otto Lopez hitting above a 335. Xavier Edwards, one of the better base stealers in all baseball, he's hitting a 300. Jacob Marcy hits for no average, but when he gets on, he swipes bags, 15+ stolen bases out of him. Javier Sanchez hitting now about a 280 as well. Need some more on some of these guys like Marcio, I mentioned a little bit before. Kyle Sowers is hitting a 230. Owen Casey has been touch and go, but still, for the Marlins, I do think that they go on the road after a pair of tough losses against the Rockies to be able to get the job done. I like the Marlins here on the money line, set them at minus 118, and I'm in on that under, so I tell 10.3. That'll wrap things up for the Friday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks to our guy Curtis Rogers over at 710 Seattle Sports for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, do have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, they mean does not matter. So, as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, that's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast by that 5-star review. I'm with you guys every single day. Give you picks and analysis on every game every day. So I will be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.